Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the backstory. If you're new here, kindly hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below so that you can be notified when we post a new video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday, police officers in Nakuru arrested some vendors who were selling fake fertilizers and seeds to farmers in a classical case of economic sabotage, because this is happening at the peak of the planting season in Kenya. So I want us to watch some of these videos and listen to NCPB and KEBS officers. Then we'll come back and analyze this.
Ladies and gentlemen, our media persons, I want to welcome you. Here I'm with the emergency team, the County Security Committee, the KELFIS and the Kenya Seed Company for the purpose of an operation that we conducted yesterday after baada ya kupokea habari kutoka kwa wananchi ya kwamba wanashuku kuna seeds ambazo zinatengenezwa Njolo ambazo sio halisi. KELFI na Kenya Seed wakaja na DCI kufanya uchunguzi pale, wakaenda wakapata ya kwamba kuna kampuni iko hapo karibu Golf Estate in Njoro ambayo iko licensed kama sehemu ya kuuza mbao. Baada ya kuingia pale wakapata ya kwamba kuna seeds ambazo ziko nyuma yetu, ziko na they are counterfeited, ziko na makaratasi ya Kenya Seeds ambayo ni genuine, na walipata 101 kg ya treated maize, which means ilikuwa tayari ikitoka iuziwe wakulima wetu. Alafu wakapata undressing seed machine, wakapata ngunia 18 ambazo zilikuwa untreated, mahindi ambayo ilikuwa inangojea tu kuwekwa ndawa na kupakiwa iuzwe, na wakapata stickers za Kenya Seeds which are counterfeit ambazo zilikuwa 34,780. Wakapata vyombo vingine, kulikuwa na guru, kulikuwa na stickers, kulikuwa na shoeing machines, na kulikuwa na vyombo vyote zile zinafanyiwa hiyo labeling. Lakini kile kilifanya tuweze kudhibiti ya kwamba haya mahindi yanayotengenezwa sio mahindi halisi, ni hii sticker ya ambayo walikuwa naweka kwa kile karatasi ya kilo 2. Hii sticker inakaa genuine, lakini ukiscratch hapa iwezi toka because inakanga kama card ile tuna road ya simu, na ile namba unapata ndani. Hiyo namba ukituma kwa namba ile KELFI wako nayo, inakueleza mahindi hayo ni ya kutoka Kenya Seed, wakati ilitengenezwa na wakati ita expire. Ukiangalia ile sticker ambayo nafikiri iko hapa, wataleta ile ambayo ni muhimu ama ile mzuri, utapata ya kwamba ukiscratch inakutolea ile namba. Now dhamana ya kwa hii paketi unaona ya kwamba hii ni the collect packet ya Kenya Seed Company, na sticker ndiyo hii. So mkulima akinunua hizi mbegu kutoka kwa duka lolote Kenya mzima, ukiscratch hapa utaona ya kwamba hii nini ya juu inatoka na inakupatia namba. Hii namba ukituma kwa namba ile KELFI wanatumia, itakuonyesha hii mahindi ni ya Kenya Seed na ilitengenezwa lini na expiring date yake ni lini, na inakupea hata hii hybrid. Kama hii ni hybrid 6213, so if it's another brand itakupatia. So kwa hizi hazina hiyo, but kwa sababu wakulima wetu pengine wana uzuzi wa kujua hayo maneno, wangeinunua tu, kwa sababu hiyo sticker ukiangalia haikuwe na tofauti kubwa kutokana na hiyo genuine ambayo nimeonyesha. Huyu mwenye hii kazi ambaye ni counterfeit, wewe anaitwa Stephen Geshalu. Biashara hii, mahindi hii yote umeona hapa na packaging hiyo, angeiuza angepata 13 million Kenya shilling, a lot of money. Hii ulagai uko, na kwa sababu wakati huu wakulima wetu hapa Nakuru, Kenya mzima wana prepare mashamba yao ndio tuweze kupanda. Langu ni kuwasihi, kwanza ni kuwashukuru kwa sababu wao ndio walituelezea ya kwamba kuna kitu inafanyika, then Kelsey wakatafuta njia zao wakapata ni kitu gani inafanyika, na ndisi yeye naye akaarrest huyu mtu, tayari amepelekwa kotini. We are still thinking of other, he could be doing other issue in counterfeit. We are still going on na investigations. Kwa hivyo ningesi wakulima wetu wawe very careful wakati wanapoangalia ama wanaponunua mahindi. I've also requested our Ngao officers and our various officers in the National Police Service kule mashinani, katika zile dispensing shops zile zinauza sasa mahindi wakati huu, wawe makini, na the difference ile itaweza kuwasaidia, hii sticker ndio itaweza kuwasaidia kujua kama ile mahindi iko kwa soko ni mahindi yale ambayo yanatarajiwa. Kwa hivyo mimi nashukuru wananchi wetu na security team yetu kwa kazi mzuri ile waliofanya, na nitahadharisha Wakenya mahali popote waliko wakati huu wawe careful. Sisi tutaendelea kusaka hawa, because kunaweza kuwa kuna wengine, tuhakikishe ya kwamba Wakenya wanapata mbegu ambayo inaheshimika, ambayo inaweza fanya kazi mzuri. Pia niwaelezee, pia tunapeana fertilizer, the national government and the county government tunapeana fertilizer mpaka to the last mile point. Pia na hapo wawe pia waangalifu, tusiwe tukawa tuko na fertilizer ambaye inauzwa ambaye ni fertilizer ambaye. We had an issue in Gilgil ya fertilizer last year ambayo haikuwa mzuri. We took the fellow who was doing it to court, na bado tunafuata ili wasije wakarudia hayo mambo ambayo walikuwa wanafanya last time.
This is how many kilos of seed, 30,000 packets. We are talking about 60,000 kilos of seed. Divide by 10, that is 6,000 acres of land planted with fake seed. You see the implication on that. So if this is replicated in other places, it will cause a lot of damage. And that is why we need to be very keen to ensure farmers get the right seed. Right now I want to give assurance that we have seed that is being processed. Actually, we are just looking at the seed that has been processed between November and now. We have 21 million kilograms or 21,000 tons. That seed should be able to cover our farmers. So farmers should not panic. I know the companies are working overnight to ensure that seed is processed and available to the farmers. So the farmers should just get seed from the right sources. And also look for the red flags. For example, you may find the normal seed is sold as 500, but somebody is selling at 400. You have reason to ask questions. And then under what environment is the seed sold? So we are asking farmers to be on the lookout for these fake dealers. Thank you.
All right.
Quick one before we maybe wind up.
Yes.
Do we know how they are able to get this packet bags? Are they printed or they get it from chemist? And how can a farmer
for this particular case, we have not found out the source. That's part of the investigation. As I said, we just got this. So the experts, the county commissioner, the DCIO, they are working on that to find out how are they getting these materials. But you know very well, the printing facilities are there. Somebody can go to a printing facility and have the material printed for them, because all they need is to present the original. They present the original, and those guys are able to produce the fake one. Thank you.
Now, this was happening in Nakuru. This happened in Nakuru yesterday. And in reported cases, we found that some of the bags of fake fertilizers and fake seeds were obtained from government outlets. And this is at the National Cereals and Produce Board outlets in Elbagon, where they found 68 bags. Kipkaren, Saliet, they found 31 bags. Ziwa, they found 45 bags, among others. But the question is, where were KEBS officers when these bags were being imported into this country? Did they do quality check? Where is the quality control part of KEBS? And then the other question that Kenyans are also asking is that why did NCPB allow these people to store these fake fertilizers in their stores? Because if they're stored in the NCPB stores, the assumption is that they have been checked by KEBS, and those are verified fertilizers that can be sold to Kenyans. Initially, I talked about a classical case of economic sabotage. And why I'm talking about this is the fact that, this is happening at a time when Kenyans are at the peak period of planting season. So when you get fake fertilizers, as it is the case now, there's this short-term effect and the long-term effect. The short-term effect is that farmers might get very low produce at the end of it, or they might not get at all. Because in Kenya, the fertilizers that we use are organic. But the ones that were impounded by KEBS officers and police officers, we are told, at very high pH levels. And they were composed of calcium, magnesium, and carbonate, whose purpose is only to condition the soil. Yet the required fertilizer in Kenya are supposed to be organic fertilizer that is required to add nutrients and sustain growth of the crops. In the short term, we are going to have low produce or low yields of crops like maize. So maybe in the next 4 or 3 months, Kenyans might have very low supply of maize. And the net effect is that we will spend so much money in importing maize into the country. One, there will be shortage of food, which is an economic sabotage. The shortage of food means that we are going to import food from other countries. We're going to import maize from Brazil, we're going to import maize from Tanzania, while in the real case, we should be food sufficient. Developed countries or other African countries are striving to make their citizens food sufficient, while in our case, we have guys who are somehow being aided by government officers to sabotage farmers. But the long-term effect of this is the fact that if you look at the pH level of these fertilizers, if you use that fertilizer over and over time, it is going to change the pH level of that soil in that farm. So once the pH level is changed, it means that over time when you're going to plow or you're going to plant maize in that farm, eventually it will be rendered useless. It will not produce any yield at all, unless you come back and try and change the pH level, which means you're going to use so much money to buy fertilizer or to buy fertilizer that are going to be used to at least try and change the pH level of that soil. Or you can do other things like crop rotation, look for ways in which you can bring back the pH level or the productivity of that soil into place. So the long-term effect is that you'll find that almost all agricultural land in Kenya will be rendered useless, because over time, the fake fertilizers that are used will render those pieces of land unusable. So eventually in Kenya, we'll rely on importation of food for our citizens. Like take for example right now, Kenya is using over 500 billion per year to import food into the country. And still, this is a case whereby we have peasant farmers also doing, helping the government to sustain food sufficiency in the country. But a case whereby we are fully reliant or dependent on importation of food, it means that we'll use maybe over 2 trillion. Money that should have been used for development will now be used for what we say importation of food into the country. So it's still what I'm talking, a classical case of economic sabotage. Then the question that we also ask is, where are those government officers who are charged with these responsibilities? Where are KEBS officers? Where are NCPP officers? Can't heads roll so that at least the government can send a very strong message to officers who have been found culpable? Yesterday, the president was in Kakamega and he talked about sending a very strong signal to those officers and traders who have been selling these fake fertilizers. I want you to listen into his speech. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to the president's speech or his what he calls stern warning, to me it comes out like just a political rhetoric or a campaign rhetoric, because this is something that has been said over and over, and you still hear of cases of corruption, of cases of like the ones that we are talking about, of Kenyans importing fake fertilizers. How did they come into the country from the port all the way to those stores? Where were the KEBS officers? So whatever the president is talking about is just a campaign, or what we call political rhetoric. What he needs to do is to, one, send those government officers who are involved in this racket should be surcharged. And the person who should take the highest political responsibilities are the people who are in charge of those ministries. Maybe the CS who is in charge of trade, maybe the CS who is in charge of trade, the CS who is in charge of agriculture, and other board members of these organizations like KEBS and NCPP.